Amarachi was just 22, a quiet girl from Goma who didn't talk much, but had a big heart. When she met Musa, everything changed. He was older, confident, worked in tech, and knew how to say the right things. He made her feel special, like she was the only one in the world. For the first time, Amarachi felt seen. Late one night, while they were chatting, Musa asked her for something small, just one photo, he said, just for me. He promised it would stay between them. Amarachi hesitated, but she trusted him. She thought this was love. So, with a shy smile and a hopeful heart, she sent it. But the next morning, her world shattered. Her phone buzzed over and over again. Friends were messaging her strange things. Then she saw it, her photo, not just in one group, but 5. All full of Musa's friends. They weren't just sharing it, they were laughing. Making jokes. Dropping comments that made her skin crawl. People who had never spoken to her were suddenly looking at her differently. Musa didn't say sorry. In fact, he acted like it was no big deal. Amarachi sat there, her hands shaking, staring at her phone. The person she trusted the most had turned her private moment into entertainment. Her heart broke, not just from shame, but from betrayal. That night, something inside her changed. The shy girl from Goma had just taken her first step toward becoming someone no one would ever laugh at again. Amarachi's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Ding. 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 Each message felt like a slap. At first, she was too scared to open them. But when she did, her heart sank. People were laughing at her photo, turning it into memes, writing cruel things. Some called her names she had never heard before. Even people she didn't know were sharing it. Her neighbors started whispering when she walked by. Women looked at her with pity. Men looked at her with something worse. She felt naked in the streets. Her whole life was now one big rumor. Then came the worst part, her boss called. He said the company had a reputation to protect. She was suspended. Just like that, her job was gone. Everything she had worked for started falling apart. Her peace. Her pride. Her dreams. It all came crashing down because of one photo, one moment of trust. At night, she lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Her eyes burned, but the tears didn't come. She felt heavy, like the shame was sitting on her chest. Friends stopped calling. Some even laughed behind her back. Her own aunt told her, "This is why girls must be careful." But Amarachi didn't cry. Not for long. After the shock faded, something stronger started to grow inside her. A quiet fire. She stopped replying to messages. She stopped trying to explain herself. She went completely silent. People thought she was broken. That she had given up. But she hadn't. She was thinking. Watching. Planning. In that silence, she began to change. She deleted old photos, wiped her social media, and started reading, about privacy, about tech, about hacking, about digital footprints. At night, while the world slept, Amarachi was learning. No one noticed the storm building inside her. They thought the shy girl had disappeared. But she was still there, smarter, colder, and ready. She didn't want pity anymore. She wanted power. The kind Musa used to make her feel small. She wanted control, over her name, her image, her story. She looked in the mirror one morning and didn't see shame. She saw a girl with a plan. Amarachi didn't scream. She didn't beg for justice. She didn't post angry videos. Instead, she stayed quiet, like a lion hiding in the grass. Everyone had already written her off as the girl who made a mistake. They had no idea she was about to become the woman who would make them regret every laugh, every message, every lie. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was her weapon. Amarachi knew she couldn't fight them with tears. She had already tried silence, and it gave her space to think. Now, it was time to move. She created a fake account, new name, new photo, new everything. She made sure the profile looked just right, pretty, playful, with just enough mystery to attract the kind of men who couldn't resist attention. Then she found the same group chats where her photo had first been passed around. She joined them like a breeze, soft, unnoticed, but dangerous. At first, she said little. Just dropped a few heart emojis, laughed at their jokes, played along. The men welcomed her like they always do when someone seems easy to impress. They didn't recognize her. Not even Musa. To them, she was just another flirty girl who wanted to be liked. She called herself Naya. And Naya became their favorite. They started telling her things. Boasting. Trying to impress her. It didn't take long. One man bragged about cheating on his wife. Another talked about a gambling habit he kept secret from his family. Musa went even deeper. He told Naya how he scammed clients, showed off receipts from dirty deals, even laughed about ruining Amarachi's name, not knowing he was talking to her the entire time. Amarachi kept her cool. She didn't react. She just listened. Every time someone sent a photo, a message, or a secret, she took a screenshot. She had folders on her laptop, one for Musa, one for each of his friends. Organized. Dated. Proof. Some of them were involved in fraud. Some had secret children. Some were stealing from their companies. And these were the same men who mocked her, called her names, treated her like trash. They had no idea their own darkness was being quietly collected. She spent weeks gathering it all. Sometimes her hands would shake while saving the screenshots. Sometimes she wanted to scream. But she didn't. She reminded herself this wasn't revenge. This was truth. Truth they thought would never come out. Amarachi was turning their game against them. They used the internet to destroy her reputation. Now she was using Wi-Fi to destroy their lies. Each night, she sat by her screen, her face lit by the blue glow, watching them dig their own graves with every message they sent. It wasn't just a game anymore. It was justice, one click at a time. What hurt her once had now become her power. And they still had no idea who they were talking to. Musa, the man who once asked for just one photo, was now giving her a full folder of evidence with his own words. Amarachi didn't have to lift her voice. She just needed a strong internet connection, a sharp mind, and patience. They thought she was gone. They thought she was broken. But Amarachi wasn't done. She was just getting started. Amarachi waited patiently. She didn't rush. Every screenshot was saved, sorted, and matched to the right person. She didn't just collect secrets, she studied them. She learned which man was married, which one had a pregnant wife, who was lying about money, who was hiding affairs, and who was pretending to be holy while doing the opposite. She didn't want loud revenge. She wanted clean, unforgettable revenge. The kind that speaks for itself. So, she chose a special day, Musa's birthday. He was throwing a dinner at a fancy restaurant. All his close friends would be there, dressed in fine clothes, laughing, showing off, pretending their lives were perfect. Their wives were invited too. Amarachi arrived quietly, dressed in a simple but beautiful outfit. No drama. No loud entrance. Just calm and power. In her hand was a small box filled with black envelopes. Each envelope had a woman's name on it, carefully written in gold ink. Below the name was a date. A date Amarachi knew they would remember. The night they were in labor. The day they were celebrating their anniversary. The moment their husband claimed he was working late. Inside each envelope were the screenshots, proof of what their husbands had really been doing. When the dinner was in full swing, Amarachi walked in. Some of the men froze when they saw her. Musa's smile faded. But before anyone could speak, Amarachi walked to each woman, one by one, and handed her an envelope. She didn't rush. She looked them in the eye and said gently, "Happy anniversary. Here's what he did while you were pregnant." The room went silent. For a moment, nobody moved. Then, the sound started. Gasps. Papers unfolding. The clicking of phones. And then, shouting. One woman slapped her husband across the face. Another threw her drink at his chest. Someone knocked over a glass. One wife stood up and screamed, "You were with her while I was in the hospital." One by one, the women left the table. Furious, heartbroken, humiliated. Some cried. Some promised lawyers. Some promised worse. Musa tried to stop Amarachi. He followed her outside, angry, embarrassed, begging her to stop. She didn't even raise her voice. She just turned to him, calm as ever, and said, "You wanted a show. I just gave the women front row seats." Then she walked away. She didn't stay to watch what happened next. She didn't need to. The truth was already in the hands of the people who deserved to know. For once, the lies weren't protected. The cheaters weren't hidden. And the women weren't left in the dark. Amarachi didn't use fire, fists, or shouting. She used facts, printed in black and white, delivered with elegance. That night, she didn't just end their game. She flipped the table. The restaurant that night had started like a celebration. Laughter filled the air. Plates clinked, waiters smiled, music played softly in the background. The men sat proud and confident, their wives glowing beside them, thinking they were lucky to have such charming, successful husbands. But that warm, perfect picture didn't last long. The moment Amarachi handed out the black envelopes, everything began to change. At first, there was silence. The kind of silence that makes your heart beat louder. Then came the sounds, soft gasps, quick whispers, and the rustling of paper. Faces changed. Smiles dropped. Hands trembled. Suddenly, the room exploded. One woman screamed, her voice shaking with rage. Another slapped her husband so hard the room froze for a second. Glass shattered as a wine glass hit the floor. A chair fell back. One wife shoved the table, shouting, "You were with her while I was in labor." Some started crying, their hands over their mouths. Others reached for their phones, already calling lawyers, sisters, friends. Waiters stood frozen, unsure what to do. The once beautiful dinner had turned into chaos. Amarachi stood there, calm in the middle of it all. She didn't yell. She didn't smile. She just watched as the truth did its work. Musa pushed through the chaos, his face pale. He was sweating, angry, embarrassed. "What do you want from me?" he shouted. "Why are you doing this?" Everyone's eyes were on them now. Amarachi didn't flinch. She looked him straight in the eye, her voice cool and steady. "You wanted a show," she said softly. "I just gave the women front row seats." Her words cut deeper than any slap. Musa didn't know what to say. The men around him were either trying to stop their wives from leaving or staring in horror at the destruction. One of them was already getting calls from his business partner. Another got a message from his boss. The lies weren't just burning, they were falling apart piece by piece. And Amarachi? She didn't wait for applause. She turned around and walked out. Slowly, with her head high. Behind her, the room was filled with screams, crashing sounds, and the smell of expensive food gone cold. Silence came again, but this time it wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, thick, like smoke after a fire. Nobody knew what to say. The men sat broken. The wives had all left. The truth had spoken louder than anything Amarachi could have shouted. Outside, the night air felt cool and fresh. Amarachi took a deep breath. She didn't feel small anymore. She didn't feel like a joke. She felt like someone who had taken back her power, not with revenge, but with truth. And she knew, from this night on, no one would ever forget her name. By the next morning, the news had spread like wildfire. The videos from the restaurant, the screenshots, the chaos, it was all over social media. People were sharing, commenting, tagging others. Musa's perfect image was destroyed. The man who once laughed the loudest now couldn't even show his face. His business partners saw the damage and didn't want to be part of it. They pulled out without warning. The brand he had built with pride was now a mess no one wanted to touch. By lunchtime, his office was sealed. Clients cancelled. Employees stopped showing up. His phone went silent, not from peace, but from being ignored. His best friend, who was also in those chats, didn't escape either. His wife had packed his bags and thrown them onto the street. His neighbors watched as he begged to be let back in, but the door stayed closed. All the men who thought they were untouchable now saw how fast everything can fall apart when truth walks in. While their world burned, Amarachi was building something new. She didn't hide. She didn't run. Instead, she walked proudly into a small office space she had rented weeks before. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. She set up her desk, put her name on the door, and opened her own PR agency. But this wasn't just any agency. It was special. It was built for women like her, women who had been shamed, mocked, exposed, and broken online. Her agency focused on digital reputation repair, privacy protection, and teaching women how to take control of their own stories. People laughed at her once. They made jokes, spread lies, and thought she'd disappear. But now, she was the one getting interviews, speaking at events, and helping others rise from the same kind of pain. Women started calling her, sending emails, asking for help. They said things like, "I saw what you did. Can you help me too?" And Amarachi always said yes, not with pity, but with purpose. The girl they once mocked had become the woman they feared. Not because she was cruel. But because she was smart. Strategic. Unafraid. Musa's name had become a warning. Amarachi's name had become a lesson. People who once ignored her now watched her with quiet respect. Some even apologized. She didn't need revenge anymore, she had results. She never bragged. She never posted about what she had done. But people knew. Her work spoke louder than words. And behind every victory, every woman she helped, was the memory of how it all started, with one photo, one betrayal, and one broken heart that refused to stay broken. Now, she wasn't just surviving. She was leading. She wasn't a victim anymore. She was a voice. A guide. A fighter for women like her. Amarachi had turned her pain into power, and that made her unstoppable. The day Amarachi opened her agency was calm, but full of quiet excitement. Friends, clients, and curious faces gathered to see the space she had built. It wasn't huge, but it was bright, modern, and full of purpose. On the walls were messages of strength, words like heal, rise, and reclaim. Amarachi wore a simple suit and a calm smile. She didn't need to dress like a warrior. Her story already spoke louder than clothes ever could. During the event, a young journalist approached her with a notebook and a microphone. She looked nervous but curious. After a few questions about her agency's mission and her plans, she paused and asked softly, "Do you regret it? Everything you did to those men, do you feel guilty?" The room went quiet. People leaned in. Amarachi didn't blink. She looked the journalist in the eye and replied, "They destroyed my dignity in group chats. I just returned their messages, to the right inbox." The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't need to. They understood. She hadn't ruined anyone's life. She had simply revealed who they truly were. The men had written their own downfalls with every message they sent, every secret they shared, every joke they made at her expense. All she did was hold up a mirror. From shame, Amarachi had built strength. From betrayal, she found purpose. And from silence, she created a voice that couldn't be ignored. Her agency wasn't just a business, it was a shield, a sword, and a second chance for so many women like her.